Hello everyone, my name is Christopher Liam Rose. I'm an author, mentor, life coach, motivational speaker, evangelist, musician, and activist. In this spiritually helping other people audio and podcast, we're going to be talking about spiritual teachings, and I'm going to be sharing a spiritual teaching that is very important for you to overcome the self and discover the no self. So this spiritual teaching is called Overcoming the Self to Discover No Self and Selflessness. Now, the self is where the suffering, pain, and adversities come from in life. When you live the self, you're living a very selfish life, and your suffering, pains, and adversities are all coming because of the self. So, a lot of people face suffering, pain, anxiety, stress, feelings, and emotions because they're focused on the self. So something that's very important that we need to learn and understand is that we need to overcome the self in order to discover the no self and selflessness. So how do you overcome the self to discover no self and selflessness? Number one, first you need to acknowledge the self and acknowledge your suffering, pains, and adversity, right? So that's the number one step. If you don't acknowledge what you've been through, what you suffered, what you've gone through, then you can't move to the next step. The next step is to do the 5 spiritual practices: prayer, meditation, mindfulness, walking, and journaling. This will help you to become more self-aware and understand yourself more, and you develop faith and spirituality when you do the 5 spiritual practices. Number 3, spiritual change. You need to go through a spiritual change in order to overcome the self to the no self and selflessness. Number 4, spiritual transformation. When you go through a spiritual change, you go through a spiritual transformation within the psyche and the psychological mind. And then number 5, the no self and selflessness. When you discover the no self and selflessness, it means you understand yourself as a human being and you know thyself. When you know thyself, it means you understand yourself. You understand yourself totally and completely. But you can only understand yourself totally and completely by doing the 5 spiritual practices and practicing prayer, meditation, mindfulness, walking, and journaling. Is very, very important. So I would encourage the listeners, you can overcome the self and discover the no self and selflessness if you do the 5 spiritual practices. Then once you've actually changed spiritually to the no self and selflessness, then do the 5 levels of helping other people, which are level 1, volunteering; level 2, jobs, careers, and employment; level 3, business and entrepreneurship; level 4, faith and spiritual; level 5, spiritually helping other people who helping other people. So these are the 5 levels of helping other people. So you go through a spiritual change, you overcome the self, then you discover the no self and selflessness, then you do the 5 spiritual practices and do the 5 levels of helping other people. By going through this process and by going through this journey, you'll overcome the self and discover the no self and selflessness. The no self and selflessness is the spiritual future. So the spiritual change is the future of humanity, the animals, and the universe. Jesus Christ, Jehovah, and Buddha want you to go through a spiritual change. They want you to change your life to a spiritual life and faithful life. But we need to develop the 5 spiritual practices and work on overcoming our suffering, pain, and adversity. Normally when we go through suffering and pain and adversity, that prevents us from discovering the no self because we focus on what's negative and rather than what's positive. So it's important to understand that once you go through a spiritual change and you discover who you are as a human being and you find yourself as a human being, then you'll find spiritual freedom and spiritual liberation. That will transform your life in every single way. And when you've transformed your life in every single way, there's no more self within you. that's what no self means, that there's no more self within you because you've transcended and overcome the self. When you've transcended and overcome the self, you become selfless, and your life is devoted into helping other people, giving back, making a difference. So it's so important. It's really so important that you go through a spiritual change. You do the 5 levels of helping other people, and you do the 5 spiritual practices. This is the way you spiritually change, and this is the way you transform your life from the self to the no self. And the no self is the future of humanity. Jesus Christ, Jehovah, and Buddha want you to discover the no self and become spiritually liberated and spiritually free. So I hope this has helped. I hope you will overcome the self and discover the no self and selflessness. Thank you for listening to the podcast and audio, and I hope this helps you. Take care now. Bye now. Thanks.